Whew. It's been a while since I did this. Well, here goes. So, the last time I did a tutorial, that was like a long time ago, and since then I have attained a lot more knowledge on models than I did before. So, it was like, as you can see, I've already, here I've got a model of Goten in the scene from Dragon Ball, but this was just because I've been working on making a archive of all the Dragon Ball Fighterz models pre-rigged for VRChat, plus various, any various mods that I mess around with. So anyone who has had my access to my archive will know about that. Heck, my friend Mario Blade 64 tweeted that about my archive a little while ago, since he used the Super Saiyan 4 Goku model in it to create Slick Goku. And yeah, it's that's where that came from. But anyways, this is an update, onto the purpose of this video. This is going to be an updated tutorial, so we'll start from the beginning. So, we want to start off, it's depending on how you have this, let's just go back. So, there are two ways you can export out a fighter's model out of the game. Two different model types. One is a PSK. That one, it's convenient in terms of mesh selection, but it has issues of itself. The other one is my personal preferred one for quite a while now, GLTF. So we're going into Goten's folder again because I still have yet to rig up his Super Saiyan form. And as you see, it looks pretty garbage, but as it is, because I need to go into. So you can hear that. That's me so to clean this up, we'll hide the armature for now. For reference, if you want to hide something really quickly, have it selected, hover your mouse over the scene like this, and then press H. Press H on your keyboard and hide. And another thing to use for reference is that I'm using Blender 2.93. Why that specifically? Because I've tested the plugins that I use for VRChat models on Blender 3.0 and 3.1. It's glitchy in 3.0, but 3.1, it's broken. Flat out broken. So until the plugin gets updated for Blender 3.0, your best bet is to stick with 2.93. That's the latest version that this plugin here works without any issues. Anyways, so how do we clean this up, you might be asking? Well, first off, while the mesh is selected, and we want the mesh, not this, which is the armature. This will control the bone's movement. We want to make sure we want to select this mesh. Now you'll notice it. Sorry, apologies if you're colorblind, because I don't know exactly how to describe it for colorblind users, but for those with normal sight, when you're selecting the mesh, an orange outline should appear like so. Now, to go into edit mode, you have two options. Either you go up here and manually click it, or you can press tab, which by default will send your mesh into edit mode. Or whatever your selection you have, it'll by default take it into edit mode, and then bounce back to what you have before. So say I was in, let's use weight paint. I press tab, I go into edit mode, and then it takes me back by pressing tab again. So by default, tab brings your selection into edit mode, and then back to the mode it was before. Anyways, so we want to go into edit mode and deselect everything. So if I undo, you'll see everything is selected and I can move it. So without anything selected, you could go the easiest way, go face selection, which is here, and then manually select. You could also hover your mouse over and press L, which will select the select any mesh that's connected. So, like, say for example, we want one of the bangs of Goten's hair here. You see how it doesn't select so much? That's because these are all the vertices that are connected, and I'll explain why it's like that in a second. How, alternatively, to save some headaches, we go into this click on this here, material properties. So, we want the associated material that's the appropriate color. So, for this one, we want to get rid of the hitbox mesh, which in terms of any Arc System Works-based models, this hitbox is for both damage calculation as well as the usage of controlling where shadows are applied in the games. So anyways, you know, we can see that the mesh here is green. So that is already a good sign that we need to use this one, dummy material 2. So if we select that, click select here, you see it highlights the green, all the mesh. Now, we want to get rid of this. This little cube will be on every base game Fighterz model in one way, shape, or form. So we want to select that by this red material here. Now, it will change depending on the model, but thankfully, it's like the materials are color-coded. At least in Blender 2.93. That's another weird thing I found with Blender 3.0. Oh, excuse me. Sorry, big fade. So, what we need to do is... Oh, sorry. Lost my train of thought because of that burp. With Blender 3.0, these materials here, they're not color-coded. They all appear black here for some weird reason. I have not figured out how to change the color visibility here. So anyways, now we need to separate what we've got selected. Now, we could go here, separate by selection. But as you can see here, we got a little shortcut that we could use. So if we press P, we want to go by selection. You could also go by material if you just want to select all of it, but since I know specifically what I want to get rid of, I'm going to just do separate by selection since I know what I'm going to need. So, now we have everything we need from the Fighterz model. So, just so that way it's easier to pose things, because there's a creator by the name of Airthus, and they've developed a Arc System Works style shading. That's the point of these things. These spheres here. These contain, this is an older version of the Blender shader, but it still works for this. So, this little thing here will allow us to change the material on a model. So, it's like we cover over this. This is for the face decal. We'll get into that in a sec. So we'll start off by clicking this, browse material to be linked, and in the case of this in particular, we want the Fighterz base. If you download the updated Blender shader from GitHub, which I could leave a link to in the description, you will find that there's options shader-wise for Grand Blue Fantasy, Guilty Gear, and all Arc System Works type models that are, I guess, readily available. I didn't see if Kill la Kill If was on there, so even though it's technically an Arc System Works model, so now you can see it's black. The entire mesh went black. This is undecided because it has no textures on it whatsoever. To change this, we want to go to this thing here. Now you'll see this here, in the top left corner of any tab. It's here, 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 and here. These, you can create as many as you like. So if you go in the corner of one, you can create a secondary window. So, see, I just pulled one out. And we could just, if we want to clear our area, we could just go and right-click on an area. This area? Oh. I guess it's not a thing in this version. Oh, well. Normally you'd be able to right-click and close the area here, but no. So it seems like this is not a thing in this version. Anyways, so you want to go click on this and go to Shader Editor. So let's just increase the size of this real quick. Now, as you can see, there's like, oh, if you're new to Blender, just so that way it's easier to move around. Holding the middle mouse click will allow you to rotate the camera. Hold Shift and middle mouse click to scroll to pan on this camera angle. So left, right, up, down. Mouse click rotates. If you hold Control and middle mouse click, you can zoom in. So just for convenience. Now, as you can see, these four orange nodes here, that's what these are called, shader nodes. These are texture nodes. So you see, when I clicked on this, it refreshed the material. So all this feeds into this, which then feeds into this thing here, the material output, which essentially is going to be the final shader result. I'm not going to go into details because I'm still new to shading, so anyways, we want to add the appropriate textures. So we want to go Open. For convenience, you'll find all your recent used folders here. These ones are GoTens folders, so I'll just click on this. So we want color, we want to find his base, SSS, ILM, and detail. The first two are located within a color folder, so color 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. Based on which model you're working with. In the case of the recently released LabCode 21, she has her own folder and 12 different color palettes. The same can be said for game characters that have had story mode adaptations, with the exception of an extra color. I think it was 59. I can't remember the exact number. It changes based on the character. But that's for the clone variation in the story mode. Anyways, we want to go GON base. We won't immediately fix it because we need to apply all the textures. So we open on the SSS, go back to this folder, and open this up. Still nothing, which is to be expected. We want to go to the base folder now. Now, for convenience sake, I'm just doing this for convenience, but when you go to Mesh, you'll see a folder Material. This is where all the textures are located. So we want to go Base, ILM. Now we're getting somewhere. Now you can see the shading looks a bit weird. If you see here, it's better explained in later versions of the shader, so if I expand that, you see, we want to set this here to linear. There we go. Now we're talking. Now, there is something missing, and that's the detail. I'll show you what. It's like, you see how this is, it's alright as it is, but watch what happens when I go Open, Base, Detail. Now, right off the bat, it's going to look weird, because we need to adjust this UV map node. We want to click on this, and go UV map 001. There we go. Now you can see there's a little bit more extra detail added to the model. And with that, we've got the base material sorted. Now you can see we still got these. These like weirdly colored lines around Goten's eye, cheek, and mouth. That is the decal material, which is this one here. As you see, there's literally just this. It's not like the shader editor, it's got nothing. So we want to change this to the decal material, which should be labeled as this, decal/damage. So you see it's gone black, but we could fix that because we need to go to this texture node in the shader editor, Open, Base, GON, Decal in this case. And there we go. That's the material for the decal sorted. There's also a Unity version of this, which I will link. I'll link both GitHub pages in the description. So if you want to mess around with this in Unity, so on the shader in Unity, you'll have that. Or if you're okay with Blender shaders, then that's your best bet. So now we can just minimize that. We don't need the shader editor anymore. Now we need to fix the armature. How do we do this? Well, first off, let's make this more visible. So to do this, we click on the armature, go to this square here, Object Properties, Viewport Display, and we want this to be in front. See, we can already see all the bones, and to make it transparent, we want to go Display As from Texture to Wire. And that makes things a lot easier to figure out. So now there's one thing we need to the thing we need to do now. We want to go into our hierarchy, which is essentially or in the case of Blender, it is listed as an outliner. So we want to open up the the armature. So we want to go here and open this up. Click on each error, G-root, pelvis. If you want to rename each and every single bone, I will leave a edited hierarchy in the description. I'll pop one on the screen. For now, though, cats can make things a bit more convenient in a sense. If we try to fix now, it won't be able to detect all the bones because cats doesn't recognize the armature type for an Arc System Works model. So we need to help it along a little. Like in my last tutorial, we want to find the specifically we want to find the bones for the limbs. After that, cats can do the rest. So we want to find the legs and arms. In this case, Fighterz models and most Arc System Works models, from what I've seen, have a typical naming convention. The upper leg bone is the thighs. So we want to name this left leg. So that's the main leg bone, but we still got more. We need to find the knees and the ankles. The knees, in this case, will be labeled as G_calf. So we open that up first, and then we go and rename. So for context, to rename something, double left click on it. So now we want to go left knee. We want the ankle, which is in this case going to be GD_foot. Left ankle. Now I'll just do the same for the right leg. So here, here, and here. Right leg. Right knee. Right ankle. Alright, so that's the legs. Now, before we hit fix, we need to sort out the arms. So to go further up, we want to go further up this hierarchy to the arms. We want the waist, stomach, chest, and for Arc System Works naming conventions, we want the clavicle bones here. These will be our shoulder bones. So we open this up. The upper arm is the root of the next view. Low arm, basically it's going to be a staircase. So typically you will find these bones are in order. So shoulder, arm, elbow, wrist. This is going to be the bones we need to rename here. Alternatively, if it's not that simple, you can identify the bones by going into pose mode. There are two ways to go into it. Three, actually. You got this one here, this main one for cats, or we go here and into pose mode. So we need to identify where the bones, like where each bone, like root bone is. So a root is the parent of all the other bones leading to it. Say we wanted to find the shoulder. We want this, want to go into here. This here is the shoulder bone. Now if we press G, or click on this, you'll see it's moving the entirety of the arm plus the shoulder. You can, if you're in the middle of something, you can also press escape to undo it. So we'll stop pose mode and go back into edit mode. Actually, no, we don't need edit mode. We don't need edit mode, at least not for the moment. So let's get to the process of renaming this. So we want to rename left shoulder. Now bear in mind, Cat's Blender plugin is also case sensitive. I usually just do the first letter of each word is a capital, but you could get away with just only having the first letter of the first word being a capital. So in the case of the left shoulder, just the L here needs to be a capital. This can be lowercase. So let's do the rest. Left arm, left elbow, left wrist. And we'll do the same for the right shoulder. Shoulder, arm, elbow, okay. So assume I didn't have a brain fart and I spelled this wrong somewhere. We can now do a fix. At least that's what I'd hope to say, but for some reason Blender has a weird issue with the cat's fix. So we want to stop cats from doing a couple of things. The first one, we don't want to join meshes. If you're making multiple mesh-based avatars, this is a no-no. So I usually, by default, tick this off. The next one we don't need is combine same materials. I've had issues before where Cats decides to combine materials that it classifies as the same material, when in reality, they're not. So we want to untick this. And then we just click OK. To get to those settings again, just click this little wrench icon next to Fix Model, and you'll come to here. Now remember, join meshes and combine same materials. By default, I have them ticked off when I'm rigging a single model like this. However, if I'm working on my public models, or if I'm working on a single avatar, I could have join meshes turned on. It depends on ultimately if you want to have something toggled on or off. So now we can hit fix. Just thinking about it, let me just get rid of that. As you can see, some of the bones have changed position and scaled up. Now, from the last tutorial, you could start posing visemes and eye tracking here and now, if you wanted to. However, I've been optimizing the rigs a bit. You see all these? These are helper bones. Arc System Works models have these to control various components of a mesh. This one isn't very a good example. So let's open this one up, this little one here. Huh, wait a minute. Did the weight paints get fixed? Hold on a second. Okay, so this is a common problem. So let's just help Blender along. So we want to pose it in a weird position like this. Go to object mode through here. Click on the mesh. Go tab. And go into edit mode. So this looks normal. And as you can see, it snaps back when I went back into object mode. That's because sometimes Cats has this weird problem where it confuses something called vertex groups. So if we click on the mesh and go to here, this little thing here, object data properties. These things are vertex groups. These are sections of the mesh that a bone will control. So if we go into edit mode, and let's start with the right wrist that we got here. Watch this. If I click on this, which is the wrist, and select, it highlights this. Probably easier if I just go into solid view. Yeah, you'll see what's highlighted as orange is what that bone will control. So the right wrist. So yeah, we had that problem before. But anyways, back to what I was describing. Helper bones. So you see this little one here now is moving the shoulder part of Goten's vest. These little helper bones, they aren't necessary for a VRChat avatar unless you're wanting to animate it. So if you want to keep the model as is for animation purposes, you don't need to optimize the rig. But if we're just making a VRChat avatar, then yes, we need to optimize this. So we stop pose mode and go into edit mode. So we need to get rid of bones that we know aren't going to be needed. Or at least not with, it's like we don't just go and select a bone and delete it. No, because there's some these bones were kept for a reason. Because in Cat Splendor plugin, you'll see we have this, remove zero weight bones. That means that all bones that don't have any mesh or vertex group are removed. So that's already been done. Anything that's left, we need to do a different way. So let's start off with around the hips area. So we got this one here, GD stomach, SCLs, normal GP stomach, hip half L and R. These ones we can get rid of, but how do we do so? We go to model options. Let's open this up a little bit more. See here, we got this thing here, merge weights. So we want to merge them to parents. So this will parent all the weights for these 4 bones to the hips. Now you got to do the same for each individual bone. So in the case of the leg, we want to get rid of these. So focus on one limb at a time, because sometimes cats likes to open up the other bones. Just make sure you're aware of what you're getting rid of, because sometimes if you I've made the mistake where I've accidentally merged the wrong bone to its parent and it caused a weird hissy fit in the armature. So just make sure that when you're optimizing the rig, be aware of what you are merging the weights of. So we don't need the pelvis bone here, so merge weights to parents. Get rid of this. Now, if I didn't pay attention, I would have accidentally clicked the right knee bone here, this one, and merged its weights. So it pays to pay, sounds dumb, but it pays off to pay attention to what you're doing. So we got these 5, merge the parents. Now we just gotta get rid of this. See, the rig's looking a lot cleaner, and if I look down here, you'll see that there's currently 179 bones. So to view the statistics over here, you would right-click and go Scene Statistics. Anyways, let's get finished cleaning up the rig. Now, you'll see I left this alone. That's because it's the parent bone for these. So we want to keep the sash, because since it hangs fairly long, it'll most likely, basically, I have a mentality that when optimizing a rig, you keep the bones that dynamic bone scripts in Unity could accommodate for. So in the case of sashes or dangling clothes like this, hair, basically, or anything that hangs low, or hangs as much as the sash here. So that's why I left this alone. spine, chest. We want to get rid of this. Merge waist appearance. Left shoulder has two child bones that we don't need, so get rid of those. Left arm has 6. Initially shows 3, but there's 6. So we want to start by selecting the first these 3. Merge waist appearance. Do this. And then get rid of this. And then follow up with this. Now for the elbow. Again, 6 more. Select the child bones first and get rid of those. Then select these. Right arm, get rid of these. I was wrong on the count. It's almost become a habit to do this, so I lose track of what I need to teach sometimes. Right elbow. Merge these. Now we don't need to merge anything on the wrist. You could get away with merging the fist bone, which is this little one right here at the base of the fingers. But I just, out of habit, keep it. Don't know why, I just keep it. So now, we've got ourselves, bone count-wise, an optimized rig. Now we want to implement a full body tracking fix. That's something I didn't cover last time, because male avatar models, I didn't quite cover it very well. So, to do a full body fix, we want to fix the following. The joints here, here, and we want to fix these bones. How do we do this? So, if you have a number pad on your keyboard, you can press 3 for a side view, 1 for a front view, 7 for a top view, 9 inverts the view, and 5, let's see, so yeah, 1 will invert, 3 is a side view, 7 is a top, up 7 plus, and remember 9 just inverts. So we want a side view. Now we want to zoom in on the joints of the legs. So specifically, for context, each bone has a head and a tail. You can tell which is which because the tail has got the thinner side of the bone. So we want to select the tail and heads of the tails of the leg bones and the heads of the knee bones, which are all are all here. If you want to select all of them from this angle, press C and you go into circle select with the scroll wheel increasing the size of your selections. So we want to click here and select these. You can see they're all out of place. So to fix this, we want to scale. So reason for scaling is because normally that will just increase the size, but watch this. So you press S for scale. As you can see, it's doing some weird things. So we want to do something specific. So we would press S, then we press Y, and you see that green line pop up. Now you see they're just only fixed on a specific axis. What we need to press next, without left clicking, we press 0. Now all of those joints are on the same point on the y-axis. This line here. Now we want to move this on the same axis. So using the move tool, or you can press G and Y. We just want to move them slightly forward. Around about that much. So that way these aren't perfectly straight, but instead slightly bent forward. So we'll do the same, and we need to do the same for the elbow connections. So select here and here. Scale Y 0. Now for a side view, this you just want to pull right about, like, if it's around here, we need it to be here. Now those are the arms fixed. Now for the torso. The hips bone is really huge, so we need to shrink this. So we bring this down to here. And because in the case of Goten, we just need to move the waist SCL parent bone's head a bit. And bring the head of the hips bone down to about here. Now, one tip for full body fixing, make sure the head of the hips bone is above the heads of the leg bones. So they almost form a triangle, not a straight line. So we go to here, here, here. It's a very slow inclined triangle. So that's the hips. So we want to bring this down to here. The spine bone, we want to select the tail and head of the spine and chest, respectively. And in the case of Goten, line it up to here. Now, it's a lot easier with female models to do full body fixes for, because there's a visual reference there. In the case of female models, depending on which one it is, you want to have the head and tail of the spine and chest bone right under, in terms of height positioning, right underneath the breasts. So for context, I will go to this blend file here, which is a battle armor model for like a modded avatar of Kefla. So if I clear this up, you'll see I've already done the fix here. So if you look, if I hide these, you'll see that the head and tail of the spine and chest bone is below the breasts in terms of relative position. That's what we need here. In the case of male models, it's a bit trickier for fighters models, but it's similar principle. So if you just need to identify where the spine and chest bend the most. So we can test this by going to pose mode. We see that we've pretty much got the chest bone here, spine, so relative positioning for the spine and chest we've got. Now we need to fix the shoulders as well. I forgot about the shoulders. So if we go to tool here, this makes it easier. We want to click this x-axis mirror. Now, if I were to move this bone, you'll see the bone of the same name, but on the opposite side moves as well. And that applies to the tail or head of the bone movement. So, where do we move the heads of the shoulder bones? We need to line it up with the neck. So in this case, move it on the x-axis, or this red arrow, and line the head up with the neck. And that is the shoulders fixed. Now we need to line the head, this series of connections here, to the neck. So we want to bring it up to about here. So like roughly where the base of the neck is. We don't need to worry about the head bone. Our main concern was the neck. So with this, we have a full body fixed Goten Fighterz model. Now, I could easily be wrong on but this is a general full body fix. It worked with my 3.0 avatar of Gogeta with some issues, mainly because of VRChat's IK, which is a weird thing. So I'm not going to go into detail on it because I don't know the specifics of that myself yet. Alright, so now back to Cat Splendor plugin. We now need to pose for mouth and eye movement. So we start pose mode. This is where it gets tricky, because mouth movement, yeah, there's a lot of bones here. But if we open up the hierarchy to the head, we need to look for the following: lip low, jaw, and teeth. That's all the lower part of the mouth, and everything that it's those, every child bone will move along with it. So we want to go G, Z, and move down. We don't want to go too far. This will be the basis of our shape key for the syllable O, O-H. So now we've got that. We want to deselect. I want to deselect, in case I lag there. Go Tool, X-axis mirror. Now you can refine this better, but for convenience sake, I just do the outer edge. So select these two bones. If X-axis mirror is on, the opposite side's affected as well. Scale, Z, and bring it down till this forms a more smooth curve, like this. Now we go Cats, and click this. Pose the shape key. Name it OH. I name it specifically like this because MMD worlds can sometimes pick up the shape keys that are named that way. OH, AH, CH, and if the first letter is a capital, if for some reason we'll pick them up. So now we want to select these bones again and move on X-axis to bring the shape key. So we want to move it so it's like this is way too wide. We want to bring it to about here. Key A-H. Now we want the teeth. Now we want strictly the teeth for this one. I know people complain about the upper teeth moving, but it's an anime model. It's not meant to be realistic. And quite frankly, it's the situation. It's like, I don't see the upper mouth moving, but I see the teeth, for the upper teeth coming down in anime. So, yeah, it's not really meant to be realistic movement there. So, now that the teeth are closed like this, post the shape key, CH. Now we need blinking, but first we need to reset this. So we click Stop Pose Mode here. If we click this one, it maintains pose, but we want specifically to stop pose mode here. So it resets the pose. Now we go back into it, and now we want to look for the upper eyelids. So in this case, we want to go scroll down the hierarchy, and here we go. We don't want the low, we want up. So start with the outer eye bone. So this one here, and over here. With X-axis mirror triggered, we will move on Z-axis down to here. Now it looks weird, but bear with me. Hold out for a second. Now we want the upper mid, bring you down. See, it's starting to come together to form a blink. Now we need the up end. Since it looks weird, we want to go and move G on the X-axis and line it up here. So bring it to about here. Now let's go up, out, and adjust accordingly. Bring this down nice and gently until it forms this. Now if I move around, you'll see that it looks like a really good a really solid anime style blink, or basic one. So that's I'd go into better detail for my own personal models, but for this one, I'm just being, I guess, lazy and just having the basic stuff, because this is going on archive. Doing this to your own version, you will have you can pose it any way you like. So now we have the shape keys needed. We want to go we want to create eye tracking and visemes. So let's open this back up again. Creation is what we need. So everything should be automatically by default here. So we only need the blink shape key in one of these slots. Only one. So, like, the other one could be left as the basis or the default look, because we don't need to worry about this. So now we can go and create eye tracking. It sometimes will come up with an error, but if we click here, you'll see these have come up. Eye tracking has been created. So just be careful. Just because it shows an error doesn't mean it's completely broken. So now we can go start eye testing. Down, up, looks good. Left and right movement, looks good there. We can test the blink strength, and that looks good. Reset shapes, and stop eye testing. So eye tracking's good. Now we need visemes, or mouth movement shape keys. So we go into visemes. By default, they're all when you've got the shape keys posed and set up, they should pop up in their appropriate slots, like so. So all we really need to do is click here. And with that, this is a VRChat compatible avatar of Goten Super Saiyan. Now we just need to clean up the scene a bit. So we can, since I want to keep this for shading purposes, I delete these spears. We want to keep this light, because for animation purposes in Blender, you need to keep this around, because if I delete this, watch, see, the shading gets fucked. So Control Z, just keep the sun around for the time, if you're doing animations in Blender. But we've got ourselves a VRChat compatible Goten Fighterz model. So save as Goten Super Saiyan. And with that, that is the Blender side of rigging and setting up Fighterz models for VRChat. And this is the updated version, because I realized I missed out several things. PSKs had broken mesh normals around the face. I didn't do a full body fix. There were several things I didn't do wrong. So, hope this helped. Have a good one, and see you around.